What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show with me, Sean Sheehan, here on Sherdog.com. And today I'm looking ahead to the PFL finales, the very, very first finals card of the year, PFL 8. It's going down August 1st, 2025, over in Atlantic City in New Jersey, in the United States. And I'm really, really, really looking forward to this. We have the welterweight and featherweights headlining and co-main eventing this, and it's two very, very, very interesting fights that could really go either way if a specific thing happens. And we'll get into that as we go. The undercard is pretty packed as well. Some of the best up-and-comers in the PFL on show there as well, so we'll talk a little bit about them as well. But let's get to the main event first, and let's talk about Tadjine versus Logan Storley. What an interesting matchup this is. Like, let's get to Tadjine first. 10-0 at 27 years of age, only just turned 27 since his last fight. In that last fight, he beat Jason Jackson on June 12th. Before that, he beat Muhammad Burkamov after like a really impressive 8-0 start to his career, where he beat the likes of Roman Baben, Ali Omar, Chris Brown, and others as well. His last last 6 fights in the PFL. Before that, he fought in CES, CFFC, LFA, and Combatche Global. So, which is a very interesting thing to do. Usually, people that talented get signed and they have like a 4-fight contract or something like that. But he was smart. He went around and fought some good guys. Like, he fought Sarek Shields in his third fight, who's a very, very good fighter, and he'd a good few amateur fights as well. He fought Roman Feraldo, who's a very, very good fighter. He ended up losing that fight, but George Molina as well as an amateur. Some really, really, really top opponents there. And he's a real dynamo of a fighter, an excellent, excellent, excellent fighter. His last fight with Jason Herzog obviously was the Burkamov fight was a massive step up, but I think again the Jason Jackson fight, where Jason is in his career right now, coming off of a win, but coming off of the massive welterweight fight where he lost, but he almost won that fight, and it could have been an immediate rematch if the Bellator and PFL stuff wasn't going on and the kind of recalibration goes on. But he went in there and he beat him, and I know it was a split decision, and it was a very, very close one, but he showed a lot in that fight. He showed more probably in that fight than fights where he knocked lads out in 2 minutes or 4 minutes, whatever it might be. Like, he showed his ability to get back up when the fight goes to the ground. He showed his ability to have more of a tactical game plan and a technical game plan than rather just going out and berserking someone and finishing them, which in itself is very, very useful. But he did a great job in that fight. We'll talk more about him in a second. But to Logan Storley, 18-3 at 32 years of age, still very young. This is the prime of his career, really. He's only lost his Shamil Musayev, who, there's an argument to see the best welterweight in the world, Yaroslav Amosov, who at the time was amazing. Obviously, Yaroslav Amosov twice, both by decision. The first one by split decision, the second one a little less close, but, he's only lost to 2 men ever, before he even got, I suppose, to the top levels of Bellator. He beat the likes of Ion Pascu, Jakeem Buckley and others as well. After the first Amosov fight, he went in against Dante Sharon, Nyman Gracie, fought a lot of good guys. MVP obviously won that fight, a very, very close fight, but ended up winning that fight as well. So a very, very talented fighter with the ability to beat some very, very good guys along the way as well. This is your old school wrestler who wants to wrestle and wrestle and wrestle, and Tadjine is a well-rounded fighter, but he wants to strike. Look, we know what he wants to do. He wants to strike, and Storley is the guy who has taken out young up-and-coming guys like this before, and Tadjine is the guy who wants to be the next guy. And who's going to win it? I don't know. I really, really don't know. I think it comes down to this. If Tadjine can stop that takedown and stop it over and over and over again, I think he will win the fight. He will, you know what? He will definitely win the fight. But if he can't, and Storley takes him down multiple times, well, Storley's going to win that fight almost certainly. Now, there have been Storley fights in the past where, like the MVP fight, in my opinion, he lost that fight. But there's been fights like that in the past where he has taken lads down, he hasn't done enough damage. But you see this season, especially the Luciano fight. Now, he went to decision on both of his fights, but the Luciano fight, he landed so many more shots than I suppose you would normally talk about with him. And if that's the case in this one as well, and these two fights are 5 rounds as well. Let's not forget the main and the co-main. It could be a very, very different story. But do you know what? I'm gonna go with Tadjine here as my pick. I feel like he learned a lot in that Jason Jackson fight. I feel like he's going to be able to stop enough takedowns to get enough output, to land enough shots, to win enough rounds. And I don't know. I really, really like him as a fighter. I doubted him going into the last fight, and I was wrong. And I'm going to pick him for this one. So really, really looking forward to that fight. Cannot wait. Let's talk about the co-main event for the featherweight strap. Jesus Pinedo against Movlid Khaybulaev. So actually looking at the betting odds, and I was somewhat shocked to see that Pinedo is actually the favourite for this fight. But in another way, I'm not shocked, because Pinedo has been on such an amazing run. Like the Gabriel Braga fight last time out was brilliant. He beat him last year as well, beat Adam Barrocks this year, finished him in the first round. 2 first-round finishes here. He's already beaten Brendan Loughnane last year, Bubba Jenkins as well. Gabriel Braga is the only guy who's beaten him since John McDessie in the UFC in 2019. His only other loss was 2015, and beat Braga twice after that. And has looked so good. Obviously, the southpaw stance and the power in his hands, but also like the ability to control the fights and take it to where he needs to go. Like his last 5 wins in a row, all knockouts, and all vicious knockouts at that. Actually, it's more than that. It's his last 9 wins in a row are all knockouts. The one loss in the middle of that was a split decision loss to Braga, who he beat twice. So in his last 10 fights, he's lost to one guy who he beat twice after that, and it was by a split decision. That tells you all you need to know, I think, about Jesus Pinedo and how good he is right now. Movlid on the other side of it, at 34 years of age, 23, 0-1 draw, 1 no contest. It's a funny thing to say, but this is probably the most beatable he has looked. The Kim fight was good. He looked good in that fight, but Kim gave him a little bit of trouble. The Jeremy Kennedy fight was so close. I thought Kennedy won that fight. I think a lot of people thought Kennedy won that fight. Look, as I said, he bounced back against Kim and won, and looked amazing last year. Beat Tyler Diamond, Raiji Kudo. I'm a big fan of his, and he ended up beating him. Beat Chris Wade as well, and Brendan Loughnane back in 2021. That was the Wade and Loughnane fights. So he has been beating everyone, really, and literally everyone, apart from the one draw. But those 2 years off between 21 and 23, then he wasn't back for 24, back in 25. I wonder, has that hurt him a little bit? And that's the only thing I can think of why maybe he hasn't looked himself this year. And do you know the big thing for me in this fight, again, very similar to the first fight, if Pinedo can keep this fight standing, I don't think he'll win in the way Tadjine will win against Storley, whereas I think Tadjine will be just much better than Storley. Although Storley's striking has improved as well, I'll put that out there. But because Khaybulaev's striking is very, very good, I don't think Pinedo will just easily take him apart. No, Pinedo has such good striking and such power in his hands that he could knock him out in a round at the same time. But go with me here for a second. I think it will be a closer fight on the feet. Let's say if it goes 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds, if it stays on the feet. But at the same time, I just think Pinedo will be too much for Khaybulaev. The way Khaybulaev is fighting at the moment, the way he's kind of taking a few shots, I think his takedowns are amazing, but they have to be timed. And Pinedo is the type of guy, I mentioned it earlier, he's in such control of the fight when he fights. It's going to be very, very difficult for Khaybulaev to take that control away. And I think it's going to need the best Khaybulaev to beat Pinedo here. Now, if the best Khaybulaev shows up, I actually think he'll win, right? But I don't know if the best Khaybulaev is going to show up. It could be one of those ones where it's motivation, and he'll be motivated for this one. We all know that, with $500,000 on the line, with the championship on the line. So I expect him to be better in this fight. But at the same time, I don't think you can just turn on and off the tap like that. I'm going with Pinedo. I think he'll stop enough takedowns in the first 2 rounds to land enough power and to win the fight. I really like Jesus Pinedo as a fighter. I said it after his last fight. If he beats Khaybulaev, I think he's not only in the top 15 in the featherweight fighters in the world, I think he's top 10, maybe even top 5. Like, that record has been exceptional. 9 of his last 10 and beat the guy he lost to twice. Brilliant. And if he beats Khaybulaev, absolutely insane record. So I'm picking Pinedo in that one, and I'm looking forward to it. Cannot wait for that. I want to pick out a few other fights here just to talk about before we go. Have to mention Asel Ajouj against Yves Landu. This fight, I believe, was booked for a card a few months ago, I suppose, at this stage as well. And it's a very, very interesting fight. Landu, a guy who's been around for a long time now. He's 38 years of age. Has some very, very good wins. He's on a 5-fight win streak at the moment. Beat Jonas Bellarino last time out. Beat Piotr Niedzielski in there as well. Gavin Hughes, Walter Cogliandro. But Asel Ajouj is the coming man. He lost his very first fight to Constantine Blanita. I was actually at that fight. Asel fights out of SPG in Dublin, and he fought a Team Rhino guy. And I think most people at that fight that night said it was the best 0-0 versus 0-0 fight we've ever seen. It was a brilliant fight, split decision. But has won every fight since then, beating Jordan Bracken, Liam McGracken, Jose Perez, George Sassus. Some good guys, but this is a massive step up in opponents for him. I remember speaking to Peter Queally once, and Queally, I asked him, who's the best guy you've trained with in the gym on the way up? And there was a lot of guys at the time, Derek Kelly and Nathan Kelly and loads more. And he said Asel Ajouj. He said he's the guy. He's the guy who's going to be really, really good. Remember hearing stories about Asel. He fought on a Saturday in Dublin, and on the Sunday morning he was out running. His father had him out running the next day. He's that sort of guy, an absolute beast in there. Yves Landu has been for a lot of years as well. And again, in good form here. He hasn't fought since May last year, but still, really looking forward to it. I'm going to pick Asel, but it should be an interesting one. Jordan Newman is also on this card as well, 7-0 as a prospect coming up, as is Jacob Kazuba. Kazuba's fighting at 160-pound catchweight, I believe, and Newman is at middleweight. He's 30 years of age now. Beat Imam Shafi Aliyev last time out in a very, very good performance, and that was, I suppose, his first step up in opponents. He had a couple of years out of the cage, and he's back in here now. And I think the opponent at the weekend, Izan Bassett, should be a good one for him. So looking forward to seeing Newman there. Jacob Kazuba as well, the undefeated 14-0 European champion from last year, beat Conor Hughes, who I mentioned earlier, in the 4th round. What a fight that was, an unbelievable late finish there. But before that, he beat Daniel Scatizzi, beat Ken Musa, beat John Mitchell and Dylan Tuke as well. He's the 2-time champion, actually, isn't he? He is indeed. Was surprised he wasn't in it this year, and I don't know, was it maybe injuries or something like that prevented him? But this guy is an absolute beast. He's fighting Sergio Cosio, who's an experienced guy, 19, 10 and 1 draw. He fought in the PFL and Bellator now in his last 3 fights. Got finished in the last one, but his win over Antonio Romero before that was a pretty good one. So, look, I think that should be a win there for Kazuba, and be very surprised if he wasn't either in a big fight or in the tournament next year. Some other guys just to mention on this as well. Hussein Kadamagomedov is fighting Kyle Driscoll. Kadamagomedov 11-1. Had a no contest actually last time out as well. There's a couple of no contests, 2 no contests in there as well. But such a talented guy, knockout power, unbelievable on the ground. He fought in the PFL super fight card. He's only lost his to Tae-Young Kim, who we mentioned earlier, back in 2021 in Brave, and he's won every other fight. And Kyle Driscoll, fighting out of the United States, 14-4, has fought in the Dana White Contender Series. He fought Cage, or he fought George Hardwick for the did he fight for the title? I think they fought for the title. Ended up losing that, but he's won every other fight around that over the last 7 or 8 years, and some good names in there as well. A guy with good knockout power, a lot of knockouts, but well able to win a fight via decision as well. So that's a good test there. I would fancy Kadamagomedov, but an interesting fight without a shadow of a doubt. Other names in this, Sarek Shields, I just mentioned him earlier. He's now 7-2 after one big loss in his career. He's fighting Nicholas Meck, Damon Nelson against Isaiah Diggs. Isaiah Diggs 5-0, a very, very good prospect. And Nathan Kelly is fighting Frederic Duprat as well. Obviously, Nathan has had a couple of bad results now in a row, but there's no doubt about the talent of Nathan. Again, he lost to Taehyung Kim and Ahmed Magomedov, who fought AJ McKee last week, but before that, the Jose Santos win was just so good, and he had 3 first-round finishes in a row, and it's coming back very quickly as well. Only fought in April. His opponent Duprat is a real submission ace, really, really good on the ground. He lost to Gabriel Braga in the tournament early this year, and that was his first PFL fight, but he's been fighting on the local scene and getting loads of guillotines and anacondas and everything. But Nathan Kelly, I believe, the youngest ever Irish black belt, so he'll be very good on the ground. If that fight hits the ground, I think it could be absolutely exceptional. I'm gonna be a bit biased there. I'll stick with my my Irish guy, and I'll go for Nathan Kelly there. So that's the card this weekend. Looking forward to it. August 1st, the Jim Whelan Boardwalk Hall, Atlantic City, New Jersey, USA. PFL 8, the finals start, and it should be a good one. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. My name is Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.